Welcome to the Messy Authoress. Today we're going to be talking about the term pantser, which describes a writer with a certain kind of writing process. And I'm going to tell you why I think this term can be problematic and which term I think we should use instead. If you clicked on this video, you're probably familiar with the kind of writing processes commonly known as pantsing and plotting, but I'm going to give you a crash course just in case. Before we get into that, my name is Valerie. This is the Messy Authoress. I will be sharing videos about writing and publishing and books. And if you want to be pleasantly surprised when a video comes out, go ahead and click subscribe because they'll be coming out completely sporadically. It'll be delightful. So when someone is drafting a novel, they will either use the plotting method or the pantsing method. Plotters are our outliners. So they are going to outline and they are going to figure out what they are going to write before they actually sit down and start writing the story. On the other hand, our pantsers have no plan. They are called pantsers because they are flying by the seat of their pants. So our pantsers are just going to sit down and start writing, and through trial and error and lots of wandering, they are going to figure out what the story is and then go back and do a lot of revising. Now, nobody is just a plotter or just a pantser. It's a spectrum, and people can be a mix of both. So for instance, someone who outlines could have a chapter by chapter, very detailed outline, or they could just know what their major plot points are. This is the inciting incident, this is the midpoint, this is the climax, and then they kind of do the wandering and the figuring out as they're getting from point to point. So they've got a little bit of pantsing mixed in with their plotting. Likewise, a pantser might have some ideas of some things that they want to hit or some major plot points they want to go to, but in general, they don't have a plan and they don't have things outlined out beforehand. So I am a pantser, or a discovery writer, as I will soon convince you is the better term. But why do I think pantser is a problematic term, or can be a problematic term? The idea that we're flying by the seat of our pants is a little self-deprecating, which I'm all for. I don't think we should take ourselves too seriously, and I think it's lighthearted, but writing is really hard, and we can really get in our heads as writers, and I think the idea that we're flying by the seat of our pants can also turn really negative. It can make us think we don't know what we're doing, we're super disorganized, we're chaotic, and especially if we're going to compare ourselves to these people that have an outline and they know where they're going and they know what we're doing, and we obviously don't. That is not helpful. Let me tell you which of these two writing processes is the best process. It's the one that gets your book written. People's writing processes can, of course, evolve and change as they get experience. And some projects might lend themselves to one kind of process more than the other. So people can change and evolve. But if we're working against ourselves and trying to use a drafting process that doesn't work for us, we're just going to get stuck. I always think outlining seems so much more efficient and better, and I won't have such a mess to revise. Of course, outliners have to revise too. It's just a little heavier when you're a pantser. But the times I have tried to make myself outline, I have just been stuck and nothing got written. So it turns out it's not the more efficient way for me to do things because nothing is getting done. I also think a lot of us that tend to be way more discovery writer might have more type B personalities or even ADHD. And we already have this narrative that we are inefficient, we're disorganized, we don't think things through, and we're sloppy and we're messy. And we have all these negative feelings about how we don't do things the right way already. And so when we say, oh, you're just flying by the seat of your pants, all of those messages that we're already struggling with in our life in general hits us harder and makes it more discouraging to write. By the way, if you are watching this and you have a very type A personality and you're a discovery writer, please tell me about that because I'm fascinated. I think the term discovery writer is not only more positive, I think it's more accurate because it's not that we're being disorganized and we're being sloppy. It's that we are discovering, we are exploring. We are writing a book in a very hands-on way where we're trying things out. And there's nothing wrong with that. When we read really good books, we don't care whether or not someone outlined it or someone did discovery writing style. We are so grateful the books got to us, however that author needed to get them to us. The phrase discovery writer seems to legitimize my writing process as something that's just as good as another writing process. Now, I want to be really clear that I am not offended by the term pantser, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't use it, and I'm not saying that I'm not going to use it. For one, it's more common if people know what you're talking about. And two, it can lend itself to making fun of yourself. And all writers need to make fun of themselves sometimes. But what is important to me is that I can have that mindset shift of, oh, it's not that I'm this chaotic hot mess that doesn't know what she's doing, but I am intentionally sitting down to discover and explore my story. And it's okay that I have to write a lot extra and I have to wander because I'm going to find my story in the end. It's a legitimate process. Again, I want to make it clear that outliners also have to revise, and sometimes they also have to write scenes to discover, and sometimes they have to delete stuff. It's not just, oh, woe is us. Writing is hard for everybody. I hope you found this video helpful, especially if you're a discovery writer. I hope you feel encouraged. And if you're an outliner, I would love to hear about some of your specific and unique struggles as an outliner, because again, I've tried that. It doesn't work for me so far, but I'd love to hear your experience. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time, whenever next time happens to be. So I wanted to end with giving you some book recommendations because if you're watching this, you're probably a reader. And if you're not a reader, you might still like these books. So I picked out both a nonfiction and a fiction, and nobody asked me to share these. These are just two books that I liked. So the first one is 4,000 Weeks Time Management for Mere Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. And I love this book. It talks about how, as mortals, we have finite time, and that gives us a lot of anxiety. And it talks about the different ways that that affects us subconsciously, that we know we have limited time. But it helps us also see that having limited time is not such a bad thing. I almost feel like I need to reread this, actually. My one little caveat, in case you're a religious person, because I am, the premise is a little bit atheistic. But as C.S. Lewis would say, we are having a mortal experience. So it still worked for me, even though I believe in God and I believe in eternity. But there's that. This is a YA book that I love so much. When the Ground is Hard by Malla Nunn. First of all, it takes place in Swaziland, which I had never read a book that took place in Swaziland before. So I loved that. 16-year-old Adele goes to a fancy boarding school where she is on the top of the social ladder. But after Christmas break, when she returns to school, she finds she has been dethroned, and she now has to share a room with a social outcast, Lottie, who likes to get in fights and doesn't follow the rules. And it's just a great exploration of just social issues and just seeing the way these two girls grow and become friends. I just love it. Let me know if you've read either of those. They're great, right? I think discovery writer is okay. So the two main types of writing I'm not saying that I'm not going to use.